Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to dig into the philosopher Spinoza's pretty radical guide to thriving. It's all about how to move from being a slave to your emotions to finding a kind of happiness that is stable and just unshakable. So let's just start with a question that I think gets right to the heart of being human. Have you ever felt completely overwhelmed by anger or fear or sadness? You know that feeling like you're not really the one in charge? Like you're just a passenger getting thrown around by the turbulence of life? Well, the 17th century philosopher Baruch Spinoza had a really stark name for this state. He called it human bondage. It's this feeling of being a slave to forces that you just don't understand. So let's really dive into what he meant by that. Okay, so first things first. Before we can even talk about finding freedom, we really need to understand the prison. We have to get what Spinoza means when he talks about being a slave to our passions. For Spinoza, a passion is basically any emotion that just happens to us. Think about it. Someone's comment makes you angry. Some good news makes you joyful. In those moments, you're passive, right? You're being acted upon, not acting from your own inner self. And this creates a kind of cycle, a cycle of bondage where our well-being is constantly at the mercy of completely unpredictable external stuff. Now, according to Spinoza, this is pretty much the default state for most of us. Our happiness just rises and falls with fortune, and it leaves us feeling kind of powerless. So why does this happen? Well, here's the twist. Spinoza's diagnosis isn't that we're weak or flawed. It's that we are, fundamentally, ignorant. We're just not aware of the true causes of our feelings, and that's what leaves us so vulnerable to them. He uses this absolutely brilliant analogy to explain it. Imagine a stone that's been thrown through the air. And this stone can think. Now, it would be aware of its own movement, its own desire to keep moving, but it wouldn't have any clue about the hand that actually threw it. So it would believe it was flying completely of its own free will. And that's us. We are just like that stone. We're intensely aware of our anger, our desires, our fears, but we're almost completely blind to the huge, complex chain of causes, our biology, our past, our environment, that actually put those feelings into motion. Spinoza calls the result of all this ignorance inadequate ideas. They're the confused, partial stories we tell ourselves that just fuel our emotional reactions. It's like seeing one tiny piece of a 1,000-piece puzzle and thinking you know the whole picture. So the big question is, how do we break free? And this brings us to Spinoza's solution, which is where things get really powerful. See, the path to freedom isn't about crushing your emotions or becoming some cold, detached robot. It's about transforming our emotions by truly understanding them. It's about turning reason into a kind of superpower for your well-being. The whole goal here is to shift from being passively affected by stuff to actively understanding it. When our feelings come from a place of clear comprehension instead of just confused reaction, when we become the true cause of our own state of mind, Spinoza calls this taking action. And this power, it comes from forming clear or adequate ideas about the world. You can really see the two paths laid out for us here, can't you? On one side, you have the life of passion. It's a total roller coaster, unstable emotions dictated by luck, and it leads to bondage. But on the other side, you have the life of reason. A stable, active joy that comes from understanding why things happen the way they do. And that leads to genuine freedom. Spinoza argues that the more an affect is known to us, then the more it is in our power. This is the practical method, the playbook. So when you feel that surge of anger or anxiety, don't just react. Stop, observe it, analyze it, trace it back to what caused it. And when you start to see it not as some personal attack, but as just a necessary outcome of a long chain of events, its power over you just starts to fade. You're no longer its slave. So what's the ultimate result of this whole journey? What does it actually feel like to live a life that's guided by reason? Spinoza calls this profound and stable state of well-being blessedness. Now, for Spinoza, blessedness isn't some prize you get at the end of the game for being a good person. It is the game. It's that deep, active satisfaction you feel in the very act of understanding the world and your place in it, seeing how everything is part of one interconnected, necessary whole. And this right here is the crucial takeaway for anyone who really wants to thrive. Unlike that fleeting pleasure you get from, say, a promotion or a compliment, this blessedness is resilient. It's a joy that fortune cannot touch because it's built on the solid bedrock of internal knowledge, not on the shifting sands of what's happening outside of you. Ultimately, Spinoza is offering us a radical redefinition of what a thriving life even is. He's saying the highest good, the very definition of human flourishing and freedom, is the self-rewarding pursuit of understanding. It is its own reward. So we'll leave you with this question to think about. What's one passion in your own life? Maybe a source of anger or frustration. How might that feeling be transformed, not by fighting against it, but by turning towards it with a really liberating light of understanding?